not only impacting the provider, it's impacting that child, and then it could impact the parents of those children. We've seen parents that become really, really shocked when they start to see a difference in the child, whether it's their behavior is a little bit more regulated because they have a routine, or whether it's they're learning, a new song in a different language, or the parents get involved and they don't just drop off the child. It's a meaningful interaction between provider and the families. It's hard to even explain everything that really is involved in not only the childcare world, but in the FFN community, and how strong they are to the foundation to many people's lives, not just the children.
Welcome to the Weld Together podcast, brought to you by United Way of Weld County, where we share stories of what's possible when people in a community come together for good. I'm Diana Smith, and today I'm talking with Lorena Ruiz. She is the Paso Institute coordinator, and she is going to share about family, friend, and neighbor providers for childcare. You are going to so enjoy this conversation as we dive deep into the landscape of childcare and why it actually matters for all of us. This really is a fascinating topic. So I am so excited to welcome you to the podcast, Lorena. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm super excited to get the conversation going.
So, Lorena, what we like to ask all of our guests on the podcast is a first question. What's in your cup? Do you have a beverage or a drink with you right now, or a favorite drink?
I actually have two. I always have to have a hot, which is my French vanilla coffee that I just make from home. I'm one of those people that likes to have the creamers in my fridge, and I just use it at my convenience. And then I always have my ice water with me. So it's balanced.
That's good. That's good. You're staying hydrated and energized.
Yes.
Yes. Lorena, I think a lot of folks in Weld County will be familiar with the Paso Institute, but for those who may be new to it, can you give us a little introduction? What is the Paso Institute?
Yeah, so the Paso Institute program, in short, it's an early childhood education program. We provide curriculum, but we also, and what I find is more important, we provide that relationship that childcare providers need when they feel like they don't know where to go. So the curriculum is based on the CDA, which is like a set of competencies that providers should generally meet or have in their childcare.
What does CDA stand for?
Childhood Development Associate. So that is a guide that teaches us what to teach providers and makes it easy for them to follow and know kind of the basics of what quality care is. But what I think really makes Paso and what really defines it is the quality that each provider has and how we can build upon that.
We all know that there are childcare deserts that exist all across the United States, and Weld County is no exception to that. But it is such a complex and important area of service. I'm curious, how did you get started into early childhood care and this kind of work?
I always say it was destined because, and I know that sounds really cheesy, but I was majoring in human services here from UNC. And they're like, okay, start looking for your internships. What would you like to do? And so I wanted to find an organization that sort of had the vision that I would like to support. And so I started Googling, and United Way came up. I saw early childhood. And at that time, I had my daughter. She was two years old. So that kind of hit home for me. I have no idea what I'm doing. I was in college. And you always assume that you're just going to know what to do as a parent, but I felt lost. So I was like, maybe this can kind of help me personally as a parent to learn about what other organizations are doing and how they support. And so I started my internship with the Bright by 3 program, which was a visiting program for parents. So I felt like at the moment I was learning as I was teaching, I was in the visits, but I was like, oh, this is really cool and interesting, and applying it to my own life. But then, of course, I was working now. And so I was like, oh, my goodness, who's going to care for my daughter? And so my mom stepped in. So my mom really saved my life there, I say, because I don't know what I would have done if she was not there as my FFM provider. And funny thing, at that moment, I had no idea that my mom was my FFM provider. We all say, just a grandma who is caring for her grandchild, as if it's an obligation, which it's not. So I was super thankful. But then a few years after, the opportunity for the PASO coordinator came up. I was 100% sure of what FFN care was and how important it was. But as I just learned more and saw how FFM providers are a core part of the community, and how without FFM providers, people can't work, businesses wouldn't have like their employees showing up. I was just so surprised and amazed at how undervalued FFM providers are and how it's not talked about as much. It's just a topic that's so overlooked and taken for granted. But I did see that after COVID, FFN care kind of came out of that hole, and people really started focusing on all types of childcare, but FFN care has been at that top. When I finally realized, wow, my mom is literally doing something that is changing not only my life, that I can be able to go out and work and provide, but also she's helping my daughter prepare for kindergarten. So she's not just there as a grandma, she's forming my daughter's mind into what she's going to be, like social, emotional, just that physical development that they have. And I was so grateful. And I'm like, I need to help all the grandmas and all the aunts and everybody in FFA care and make sure that they know what quality care is, so that those children are being stimulated and prepared even before entering school.
That's amazing. So you have lived this arena of work that you're in as well. You have actually lived and breathed it yourself.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And fast forward a few years, I had a son, and she did the same with him. So up until kindergarten, my mom has cared for both of my children. So that was 10 years of childcare that she provided.
Wow.
So I was just so grateful. And I went through also all those challenges that parents go through when their FFM provider is not available. But it's like, what can you do? Like, you have to understand FFM providers, they don't get paid the same as licensed childcare providers, or even close to what a provider should get. There's not as many resources for those providers, as far as food programs that can support when a child is dropped off and they're dropped off with nothing but just a little backpack with maybe a blanket and a toy. That provider really has to decide, okay, I have to go to the store and purchase the diapers or some snacks and food. But what is incredible, I see providers doing that out of love, and as hard as it is and as difficult as it may be for them financially, they do it. And that's why they stay really close to my heart. And I really love the FFA community because they're givers. Naturally, they're givers, and they're people who do their job because they love it.
I think what you said is really true, that I don't think a lot of people think about FFN providers, which stands for Family, Friend, and Neighbor Child Care Providers, when we're talking about the whole child care landscape. I think most of us just imagine that you've got a child care center and it's established. And I think the assumption is that's where you take your child if you need to work. And the reality is that actually there aren't enough child care centers in Weld County. This is a really big challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, especially for the toddlers and infant slots. I run into parents who are struggling to find those slots in licensed childcares, and they end up in an FFN provider household. I think 65% of children in Weld County are cared for by an FFM provider. Wow. So yeah, if you compare the amount of slots to what there is in centers, it's not enough. And providers, they create that, especially if it's a family that's taking care of the child. They know the child already. The household is familiar to the child. It's not creating that strain from going to a center, back to home. Culturally, it's easier for a child to develop if they're in a home where they understand the language, they know the provider, they know where all their, if they're in their personal home, even better. But if they're in the provider's home, they develop a routine. And it's different care, but we want the same results.
That's actually what I wanted to ask you, because in terms of differentiating the child care that is out there, how would you quickly describe the difference between all of these different care options for working families?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, the childcare centers, typically it's more of you have a strict 8 to 5 policy where children can be dropped off during those times. And you're in classrooms with, different amount of children based on what center it is. Then you have the licensed home childcare centers, which is also similar to FFM providers, but they are able to care for a bit more children. So FFM providers, you often hear them as informal, license exempt, but so long as they're not caring for more than 4 children in their home, they're FFM providers. And we try to make it known to them that we're not there to regulate or, enforce anything. We're not going in and rating them. But because there is that max of 4 children, we want to let them know you don't have your license yet. You have the opportunity if you would like to pursue licensure, which is always an avenue that we're open to support at United Way as well. But the 4 children is because just that's what it is for an FFM provider. So 4 children and no more than 2 under 2. And so that's what makes them license exempt. If they were to care or would like to care for more children, that's when we say, okay, that's perfectly fine, but maybe let's try licensing. That's another thing with FFN care is like centers or licensed care is often pricey. And, we're caring for children, right? But FFM providers tend to often, I've seen providers not charge at all, especially if they're caring for their family member. If it's an aunt or a grandma caring, they typically don't see it as a title, like a job that they are doing. It's more out of love for the children and for the family member. So they do not charge. And we actually, interestingly, did a survey recently. Out of our 300 pool of providers, 50 responded, 52. And we asked how much they were charging prior to taking PASO and how much they were charging after taking PASO. And I want to say like 80% were charging less than $20 a day. And after that, it all increased. They learned the value of their work, that they're not there only to babysit, which is what we hear a lot is like, oh, I only babysit like here and there. I'm like, no, you're actually shaping the mind of that little child in your care. And once they start taking themselves seriously as providers, as professionals, you see like things just evolve with the provider as well as with the child. Like it's just like a little spark that they get in their eyes where after they learn that they are making a difference in the child's life, it's like, I want to learn more. I want to do more. Can you help me? Can we apply for this? And it goes up from there. And that's our goal. We want quality care in all homes, regardless if it's a licensed or informal home.
Right. That's right.
The resources are limited to them, but they really want to learn and take that time to become better and do what they have to do to make sure that that child is ready for school. I think that that's a provider that a majority of people would trust with their children. We're seeing more programs come out and support providers with stipends for professional development trainings, for quality improvement supplies. What's actually cool right now is that through the state funding that we have, we are able to provide them with $950 to Amazon for quality improvement supplies, so that alleviates the cost of them having to go out and purchase their own supplies. And we also help build the area for them. So we want to make sure that they understand that just because they are informal childcare providers, it's their duty to provide quality care to the children. And at the end of the program, at the graduation ceremony, we make them declare, like hand up and everything, sign the paper. Like, this is your testament that you went through this program. You understand what quality care is. We're not holding anybody to a higher standard of what quality care is. We expect that each child is in a healthy and a safe environment. And once providers realize that, and sometimes it's sad to see that guilt, that mom guilt come out of them. They're like, oh, I wish I knew this like with my child because I feel like I failed them. And we're just like, nope. You have all of the tools you need now to move forward. And whether it's you're working with your grandchild or your family's child or anybody, you have that ability to make a difference in a child's life. And regardless of how our care was before or what we did or didn't do, what matters is that like they put the effort in, the work into to be better providers and, to up that quality for the children.
The Weld Together podcast is brought to you by United Way of Weld County, building powerful partnerships to bring about lasting community-wide change. Learn more at www.unitedway-weld.org.
So within the 15 weeks of classes, we have 3 home visits. We get that opportunity to go into providers' homes and see what they're working with, what we can help support as far as quality improvement materials, general guidance or ideas on how to navigate your space, how to use the space to the best of your benefit. And I think it's just a really complete program because we guide them from the first day to the end of the 15 weeks. We're there by their side, and it depends what their goal is. Providers come to us and they're like, I am the grandma and I take care of my grandchildren. I would like to know how I can better support them. But then that's it. That's where I want to stop. Okay, perfect. Join our classes. Then we also have providers who say, I want to start the classes with the goal of obtaining my CDA. So they would like to obtain their Childhood Development Associate. And we've found that many organizations outside of the area accept the CDA. So it kind of opens that door for any providers who would like to keep working as FFM providers, but maybe need that extra income as far as trying to make ends meet when they're trying to just live.
So tell me if this is right, but is it true then that a lot of them stumble into childcare? Like, your mom stepped in for you.
Yeah, so Paso specifically works with Latina women, so Spanish-speaking women. Oftentimes we have women who've been in the country for less than, 5 years. And that's pretty new when you're starting over in a new place and you're kind of trying to find what to do. You either have family here and you're caring for the family's children, or we've seen a lot of providers who have like some sort of degree in their country. And they're just like, I worked as a teacher and, unfortunately here I can transfer my title, but I still have that love for teaching. I still have that love for children and I would like to get involved in something. And so they start in PASO. And we also try to support FFM providers who maybe aren't ready for PASO. 120 hours is a commitment. Oftentimes people work and they're just like, I don't have time to sit in the class all day. But, just having resources on hand for them. Well, if you don't want to do this 15-week course, here's the 2-hour course that you can do online.
And I can really imagine what a game changer that would be for women who suddenly come into taking care of a child that they know, and then maybe 1 or 2 other children that are in their circle. And suddenly this world of childcare opens up to them, and to have that resource in the PASO Institute, and also to have someone to help just navigating the resources that are available and the costs that are involved with that. I just imagine how this must snowball for care providers, and what an incredible, I don't know, I almost want to say like a balm. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So we've had providers tell us when we're recruiting for PASO, oh, no, thank you. I've already raised 5 children. I don't need this program. I know what I'm doing. Okay, that's fine. These are just tools. We want to have, no, thank you. Okay, thank you. Like, thanks for your interest. But I'm like, 90% of that child's brain is developed within the first 3 years of their life. So where they're in for childcare in those years is crucial. So that's how we explain it to providers. It's like we sell it to them by saying your child is not going to be learning just day 1 of kindergarten. That's not where they're learning. They start learning when they're in the mother's belly. They start learning from there. Even if it's a newborn baby, like talking to them, soothing voices, even reading to them in like a really calm voice. And by age 5, when their brain is 95% developed, which is when they enter kindergarten, it's much more easier if they go into school prepared and a little bit more confident about, their role as a kindergartner. But it's hard when children aren't stimulated, or when they're just watching television all day, or maybe if they don't ever have access to books in their home. That's a real contributing factor to the difficultness it's going to be for them to read by the time they're in school.
That's right.
So
that's right.
And I always say when I talk about FFN care, about PASO, there's so many little branches that stem out. It's hard to even stay on track because you're like, oh, but this is also important. But it's such a complex idea, but so important for us to support and to provide access to resources to these providers, because it's like a snowball effect. It's not only impacting the provider, it's impacting that child, and then it could impact the parents of those children. We've seen parents that become really, really shocked when they start to see a difference in the child, whether it's their behavior is a little bit more regulated because they have a routine, or whether it's they're learning, a new song in a different language, or, such things different for each provider. But then the parents get involved and they don't just drop off the child. It's a meaningful interaction between provider and the families to say, okay, I see this change in my child. How can I continue supporting that at home? It's just so complex that it's hard to even explain everything that really is involved in not only the childcare world, but like just in general in the FFN community, and how strong they are to the foundation to many people's lives, not just the children.
It's a strange metaphor, but to me, early childhood education is almost like a mystery novel where the further that you go into the story, the more details and the more nuances and the mystery kind of increases even as you learn more about the story. And as you get to the end of the story, you get the full perspective of all of the different things that are in motion that create that story. It's only when you get really deep into that story that you can see how all of the parts played together.
Yes, that's exactly it. You dive deeper and deeper and you start to understand childcare and FFN care, the different types of cares. And like I told you earlier, I was shocked when I started. Really, you're just like, oh my goodness. And like you're saying, it's so much to understand. But then we have these few committees that are developing different plans on how we can continue to advocate and support FFN providers. And it's really great to see, because now we're actually involving the FFN providers themselves in the conversation. And so I would say like 5 or 6 active providers that came from Weld County's PASO are at the state level now advocating for themselves and telling their experiences, sharing their stories. And now they're not only impacting the parents, the children, and themselves, now they're at the state level, which can impact the state as a whole.
That's amazing.
Their advocacy. Yeah. So it's great to see how our providers are not only taking roles as providers, but now advocates for others.
I think that really shows, of course, I'm going to be a little biased here because I love United Way, but even from an unbiased viewpoint, I think it really shows the strength of a program when the participants believe in it so much that even after they move on from that program, they then come back and become the teachers and the advocates and the voices for that program and for that kind of work and those conversations. That's tremendous.
Yeah, my staff, 2 trainers, Sarai and Gabby, they are amazing. And they actually both went through the PASO program at one point. So they have firsthand experience of what it's like to be in that seat. I've always told them our goal is to help them become self-sustained. We don't want them depending on us. We want them to know how to navigate resources. We want them to be able to have that courage to advocate for themselves in whatever they feel they need, but we're always there to support them. So, I think it's showing that we are giving them that strength, that courage to not be afraid. I support all avenues of childcare, quality care, but it's a little bit harder for those FFM providers to get to a point where they do have what they need in their home, the structure they need, the resources they need. And so that's why we work hard to get them where they're at, but we don't expect less from them. So they're still held at the same standard of care as any childcare provider. And I hope that people understand that it's not that they're just, they're not just any childcare provider who's just working from home and not trying to better themselves. That's why we have these programs to support providers and make sure that FFN, license, any type of childcare, they have resources and they have the knowledge they need to continue providing good care.
I think what you've shared is so profound in terms of the need for FFNs and how, as you said, over 60% of children in Weld County are being cared for by family, friend, and neighbor providers.
When we hear from FFN providers and we ask them, what's important to you? What would you like for just the general public to know about what an FFN provider is? They want to feel valued. They want to be known that they're doing a job, that it's a career for them. It's not simply babysitting, and they would like to be respected. Those are the top 3 things that they would like for people to know about their work, and that they're working hard. They're working hard to be able to provide the care, to advocate for the children and for themselves.
Is there one thing that you wish everybody knew when it comes to FFN providers?
Yeah, FFN care isn't informal, it's foundational. And I think at one point of our lives, there was an FFN provider who maybe we don't even realize it, who, supported us or our families. And, they're doing great work, and it's important. It's a cycle. And without those FFN providers, we would be in trouble. Businesses would be in trouble. Schools would be in trouble. Families would be in trouble. If you really think about it, they move the society, they move community, and allow people to work, allow children to be successful. And they're also creating workforce opportunities for themselves.
Literally everybody wins when FFN providers are supported.
Yes.
That's amazing. Lorena, thank you so much for sharing with us. It really is just tremendous work that you're involved in. And thank you and the rest of the team.
Thank you for having me.
I know it's not easy, so thank you. So we like to end with one more question, and that is, what fills your cup? What is keeping you going right now?
I'm very close with family. Family fills my cup and my heart, and they kind of keep my motor going. Mm-hmm. And then just being a resource to somebody and seeing that I was part of somebody's journey. I do not take credit for their journey, but when they see me as a resource, when they thank me, that fills my cup and makes me want to continue the work that I'm doing.
We're so glad that you're doing it. And yes, and hopefully your dog is supportive too.
Oh yes, very. She's been really good today. She's been quiet.
What kind of dog do you have?
She's a poodle. Her name is Maya. Yeah.
Your dog's name is Maya?
Uh-huh.
No!
Yes. Is your dog's name?
Yes, we both have dogs named Maya.
I know.
Oh, see? We're friends already. Join the caring power of the United Way of Weld County community. Visit unitedway-weld.org, where you can learn more about our projects, find great volunteer opportunities, and donate. Special thanks to our cornerstone partners, our leadership givers, and the many individuals who make our work and this podcast possible. The music you heard today is by Alex Productions. I'm Diana Smith, your host. Thank you again for listening to the Weld Together podcast. And until next time, remember to be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and remember, even a little good can go a very long way.